Welcome to the Crypto Rainn channel. I'm your host, Jay Rainn, and today is Technical Analysis Day with Paul from Definity. As you likely know, if you've caught previous episodes, Paul has been reading charts and trading since the 90s. He has also taught reading charts, and thanks to Definity, he is on loan to the Rainmaker family for our Wednesday TA Day with Paul. As you know, I'm a fundamental analysis investor with just a few years' experience in reading charts, and Paul and I look at things very differently, which drives the real goal of the channel to have the most informed audience in crypto. So let's welcome in Paul.
Great to be here.
Yes,
How you doing?
I'm fantastic. I really look forward to our Wednesdays. I love your analysis.
Me too. I've got to say, I really enjoy the what you've got to say. So I'm eagerly waiting to hear what you've got to say about the coins that the viewers have put in. So thank you for all your comments. Thank you for your picks for this week, and yeah, looking forward to it.
Fantastic. Let's get the party started let's talk about what's been on everyone's mind as we had this big pullback in September. Oh my gosh, September historically, for those of you who don't know, isn't really usually that good for crypto, even in the bull run year, which we should be in. And so there's usually some reason, some story that gets everyone panicked. And the story and the reason that gets everybody panicked this month has been, oh my gosh, this big real estate company that none of us have ever heard about is crashing and they're about to default on their loans. And so I've been really anxious to hear Paul's thoughts on the macro level, not only with that, but how it relates to like equities in the US markets, as well as what's going on in China, because they do hold a lot of debt around the world. So yeah, Paul, do you have any thoughts on what's going on in the overall market?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm going to share my screen, my analysis screen here, because there's definitely a lot of interesting things that have been building up. I think we mentioned just sort of in passing last week that the equity markets were looking like they were going to turn down. I don't think we talked much about the Hong Kong and China markets, but they have been in my weekly document for Definity. I've been talking extensively about how the Chinese and the market have been extremely weak, and it's not actually been clear as to why they've been so weak, although there's some policy decisions that could explain it. But now I think we're beginning to see why people in the background have been bailing out stocks. This is why I like to use technical analysis, because you usually hear about the move or see the move before you hear about it in the markets. So it's like an early warning signal, if you like. So this is a chart of Evergrande. As you can see, this has been going down for a while. So it's not a new story as far as this chart is concerned. If any of you viewers had asked me to look at it, between now and sort of April, even the beginning of the year, we would have said, look, this looks like it's going down. And it's what's actually a little bit worrying about this is, I mean, this is not stock advice, because I'm not saying to try and catch a falling knife, but even though it's fallen so far, it's not really bounced very much. So normally when you get an end of a trend move, there's this big panic, everyone bails out, and then you get this sort of rubber band effect where the market bounces up really aggressively. We have not seen that at all. So it's almost like a boxer that's been knocked out and it's staying on the canvas, which is not a good sign. Now that could well change. So this is a very fluid market. There's a lot of volatility coming, but as far as the trend goes, I'm sure everyone who's looking at this can see that is a clear downward trend. So if we put the Chinese market on, this is the China 50. I've been observing this downward trend. I've got these levels here that 16,440 was the breakdown. So that happened in July. And then we've gone into this technical pattern. Now, this is what we call a descending triangle. It's a really good example of a descending triangle, which is usually a continuation pattern. Interestingly, the Chinese market hasn't broken lower since this news. So if we think about the news is really negative. Chinese stock market hasn't broken down. Or there's two different types of Chinese market. The other one has, this one hasn't. So why is this holding up? Well, this suggests there will be a bit of short-term buying, and as I suppose people think that the response by the authorities will support the market. So they're using this as a buying opportunity. Now, where do they change their view? They're going to change their view if 511, this support level. How many times does it hit? 1, 2, 3. Absolutely bang on and to the point. It's so buying here, and buying here. Now, if we break that, big downside. So the game continues. So this downward trend is definitely not over yet, but there is evidence of a little bit of short-term buying. And remember, short-term buying is not enough to change a trend. It's just saying that there's obviously, day traders, weak traders who are coming in. They think the market is weak but ripe for a bounce, or ripe for it's cheap enough for them to buy it, shall we say. But that's a dangerous game, and I would always be very, very cautious of that. This is the Hong Kong market, and as you can see, it's already made this one bounced again, and then it broke through its low. So the Hong Kong market is actually taking this much worse than the Chinese market. Now, obviously, I'm guessing that the guys who are watching the show, you're probably not that familiar with those markets, or if you are, you're not going to be trading them. And I totally agree. But this is why I like to use technical analysis across a range of products. For that reason, we can see whether the US markets are going to suffer. Now, this is the S&P 500, and it made a short-term top, and we talked about that top briefly, and it triggered a break of support at the 44.79 level, traded around it, and then it broke through aggressively. Now, that is not as significant a top if we compare the two charts, the Hang Seng and the Chinese stock market. It's not at this stage as significant a top. It doesn't look as bearish. It's not in such a strong downward trend, but it is still turning. And so I think equities could still be within have a bit of a bumpy ride in this month and the next. So it wouldn't surprise me to see this come back down towards this 42.28 level, and possibly even lower. Now, if you want some very short-term analysis, you see this little gap here. The market was sitting on support. I'll try and zoom in a bit more, so maybe make it a bit clearer for you. So there's this gap here. So the market went down and then it gapped down. So what a gap is when the market closes and then there's some news, it panics a bit, and it reopens much lower. So that area in between where it hasn't traded is obviously a gap. That's why it's called that. But it means that the market's been there's been something that's made people panic in the short term. Now we can already see very short term bar has returned. It's returned back into that area. That's quite a common feature of gaps. Some people say always trade the market as though the gap is going to be filled, or gaps are always filled. That's not strictly true. Sometimes the market gaps and it just collapses. So I'd be very wary of buying a falling market just because you think the gap is going to fill. And by fill, I mean the market goes back into that gap. But it's gone back into this gap, but it should actually find a bit of resistance there. So it wouldn't surprise me if it traded up just a little bit more, maybe to 44.27, that sort of area, and then came off again, and this turned into a new downward trend. So the backdrop is equities have been weak in China and Hong Kong. They've been weakening in Europe, and the US markets have held up really, really well, but were starting to crack a few weeks ago. And this has turned into quite a strong move, an initial strong move, but there's still more work to do to really change this long-term upward trend. But I would stick with the bearish side for now, just because I can't see the other markets changing. And even though there may be a short-term bounce, I still think there's more downside potential for these equities. So how that plays into the crypto market is what we should discuss now. Should I go into? Would you like me to look at Bitcoin, because that wasn't actually on the list?
Would love it. Yes.
Okay. So if you remember last week, we talked about Bitcoin, and there was we talked about that golden cross. There was the golden cross and the weakness in the US dollar, which I was saying, the golden cross, you've got to be careful of that, because you've got to look at the context, and the context didn't really support a bounce in Bitcoin. If anything, it was a range, and we were watching, the support level here to see if it broke that, the market would go down. So 4,200 is the big level, which it got a sharp move through that, and it's rallied back up again. So Bitcoin in itself is still in a consolidation phase, and this is the problem with consolidation phases. They whip you about. So near the top of the market, everyone says, oh yeah, it's a new bull market. my level for changing my view and going to 100k was 5400, 500, 5400. If it breaks that, we're going to go to 100k. Whilst we're below it, we've got to be really careful. We're in a corrective phase that could take us down to 37,300, which is massive support. If we break that, then it's going to go to 28,600, and then if it breaks that again, so I know it's a step-by-step approach, the low would be, well, we'd expect a correction towards 20,000, but then after this big corrective phase, we're looking for a bull market back up to 100,000. Now, we could bring that 100,000 target forward if these resistance levels are broken. But for the moment, I think that this will just range trade, and I think on balance it will probably try and break this 37,300, but it's a tricky call because the market is becoming more volatile, but it has not really traded significantly outside of this corrective range. So if we go back to Jan 21, the beginning of this year, market traded up, it's made a pattern, it's broken below, it found support, it's traded it up again through this 4,200, and now it's trading back down again. So we have been basically treading water, albeit with big swings. And the size of these swings is not lost to me. These are massive moves. I get it, but if you bought Bitcoin at this point and still holding it here, you'll be flat on your position, and that to me requires caution. We should still be cautious about the potential for where the market will go next. So we can't be bullish because this doesn't support it yet. The charts do not support a broadly bullish view. At the best, we can say that this should range trade, but I don't think that this is the end of the bull phase in terms of the very big picture. So if you were coming into it for the first time, you might say, well, I may see better levels to buy. If you are holding it and you're looking for a short-term move, then it's a dangerous game to play because the market is in a corrective phase. But if you're willing to hold it for a year or two, then I think ultimately this will resolve. So it comes down to your time frame. I don't know what you're thinking on Bitcoin.
Well, so having been, in real estate for a long time, but real estate trends more slowly, and even on the investment side, right? So it really is about picking good real estate and usually holding for terms. The problem with real estate is from top to top, the period is so long. And so literally you grow old while you're waiting through 2 whole cycles. Whereas what I saw in cryptocurrency is from top to top, the cycle is about 4 years long, which means if you're buying at the bottom about a year and a half after the top, and then you're holding for a long period, great. And enjoying that whole ride up and then taking profits on that ride up, and then that way de-risking because you don't want to catch that strong ride down. So the question is, when is the top going to be? And that's always the question, even though we identify this 4-year pattern that Bitcoin so far has respected really strongly.
Yeah.
Now, some people saying, oh my gosh, we've hit the top. And, a prominent YouTuber is like, oh, October and we're done, and then we're into the long bear market. And I think that top is still coming. However, usually there's a shakeout that scares the heck out of people, and it causes people to panic sell, especially the new people, right before it then goes huge. And I think we're seeing this setup for that whatever the situation is. And so the one event in China wasn't big enough to cause that, but my guess is some more things come out that kind of scare some people, and it might be prices dropping down to 28,000 or even 20, what was the other number below that, 22,000. 20,000, and it will scare the life out of people. They're like, oh my gosh, it's about to go to zero. And right as that happens, it's often a really strong wick down. A lot of people just panic sell and liquidate at that, and people who've been around for a long time just scoop it up like crazy, and you see this extreme bounce back. And then that has happened actually every cycle for the last 2 cycles, right before the major run, especially in the cycle that we're closest to, which is 2013. And you see this strong wick down and then this harsh bounce back up, and then it runs. A lot of people who are new, they just panic sold that thinking, oh my gosh, either they invested with money they couldn't afford to lose, And so they're like, oh my goodness, it's going to zero, let me cash out. They end up selling right near the bottom, only to see it take off. Now, is that guaranteed to happen? There are absolutely no guarantees in investing. And that's why we're here, and that's why the returns are so good, is because there are no guarantees for it. So is it likely to happen? Yeah, my guess is the pattern repeats once again. And that human behavior, there will be some event that, yes, there are some people that kind of manipulate the market. You just understand that. And they call them whales, and we're all like little fish. Even if you're worth $2 to $10 million, you're very much a little fish in this big pond. And think of your say like a tuna swimming in the ocean, which is a really big fish compared to a lot of fish out there. But then this whale passes you by, and you just get pulled wherever the slipstream of that whale pulls you for a little bit. And that kind of stuff happens here. And my guess is it's setting up to scare the crap out of a lot of us right before it then takes off and goes crazy, which is why I hold for these longer periods. And I don't trade these more immediate moves, other than I did just trade the breakout with Ecomi, which we've talked about and we'll talk about today.
Sure.
But I've also been dollar cost averaging into Ecomi for 6 months. I just added to my position when it broke above some major resistance.
Yeah.
But Bitcoin, yeah, it might go down to there. I'm patiently waiting. I don't sell. I used to try to sell and buy back cheaper, but I found, I don't know whether it was like 2 out of 5 times I end up getting back in decently. 3 out of 5 I end up buying back higher, and I just don't try to do that anymore. I just hold for longer periods of time. It's worked exceptionally well for me. And for people who are new at this, and most people are new at this, trying to time that is incredibly difficult. There are only about 5, maybe 10% of traders win pretty significantly overall on the average. And so I just figured, okay, I'm not exceptionally good at the TA, I'm just moderately good, but what I am good at is identifying strong fundamentals and just holding for periods, and that's worked out well for me, very well.
That's it.
So on this, I'm looking, saying, probably going to go down.
On the patterns and the cycles, I also noticed last week, but I think it was after our show, that there seemed to be, like, occasionally you can get a fractal of a market. So in other words, the market starts behaving in a similar way to the way it was before, and the path of it is repeating. So I noticed that this top here, so you've got this little move here, and this jink up to the top was very similar to this move, the way it jinked up to the top. Then it came down, rallied. So this came down and then rallied. And then we got this move down, which is what we've got here. So if this plays out, and sometimes it works really well and sometimes it doesn't. So, nothing is guaranteed in the market, which you've said many times, and you're absolutely right about that. But if it does continue in a similar way, then we would get an extension of this move down to follow this, and then a sideways move, an attempt to break lower. That would shake everybody out, and then we get a trend up. Now, I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination that that's, exactly what the market's going to do, because nobody can say that. It's all probability based. But I thought it was interesting that it started to do that last week, and it's so far followed that pattern. So if it does continue in that way, it would also suggest a corrections on the cards. But I'm not trying to become married to any view here. I think a correction is better, and sideways to down is the favored view for it. But if it starts getting strong, I will look at other levels. So this is a wait and see market, and so far, if you're long, there's no strong reason to make any changes, especially if you're long term bullish. So so I just thought I'd share that because you were mentioning cycles, and I thought repeating pattern going on there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So should I switch over to the viewers charts? Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to go back to my screen, and then I've got to go into the Safari, because that's where I've got the chart set up. So now, basically, in between week to week, because I'm busy with other things, I don't get a chance to look at these markets. So sometimes I'm going to put the coin up, and it might not be the one you've asked for. I'm really sorry, but I know we have a man on the channel who knows exactly the right one. So if anything's incorrect, he will pull me up on it straight away. So is this the correct
UMB
one?
umbrella.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So this has been basing out. So if we go back a little bit and we look at this technical pattern, I think we talked about this being a head and shoulders pattern last week. But if we didn't, we should have done, because it's left shoulder, head, right shoulder, and it broke up. It's come down again. It's still within a reversal phase, but boy, look at this sharp move up here. That is well, it's ignoring all the other news that's going on. So we know that these coins tend to do their own thing, so they are not correlated to the main markets. And B, this is breaking out. So this is a very sharp move. Doesn't look like there's much volume going on, but I look at price action more than volume anyway. So this is broken through resistance. So I think this has got more than a fighting chance of now getting up to a half. So this is a basing pattern, and as long as it holds above these rising lows here, so the point where it all breaks down is below 0.1955, because that's the bottom of the range. But no, so this is looking like it wants to break out into a trend. So I would suggest that this has got more upside. What's your view on it here?
Yeah, and if you remember, this is the one that did very well when it came out, but then, so they're a competitor to Chainlink. But Chainlink can only do one data point per minute with their technology, per query or agreement. And Umbrella has a way to send them multiple data points for that query. And so essentially they can get more data for a lower cost. And so they offer a very viable to Chainlink, which has dominated the Oracle space within crypto. And so I don't know where I'll go, but Chainlink's market cap, if I look at it, it's incredibly high at 11 billion. And let's see, if they just cut in and took a 10% market share, let's look at Umbrella's market cap right now. Its total market cap is at 27 million, though when I covered this on my channel, it was at 17 million.
Wow.
And so it's done some gains while many things have lost. And I think there's a lot more to come with it. I think specifically this big wick up came because they got added to KuCoin, because before you mostly could trade it on smaller markets and on Uniswap, and now it's on KuCoin. You can trade it. They also added availability to be able to trade it on PancakeSwap, so they did a bridge over to the Binance Smart Chain. So there's a lot of things that they've added and abilities to buy it, so they're not paying the Ethereum transactions on Uniswap in order just to buy it. So you can go to KuCoin, pay very little money to trade on it. And I'm looking right now at CoinGecko, and I'm not seeing it showing KuCoin here, but it was just added. So I like this one. I like the team behind it. I felt like they had a great vision, focused, and so if their market cap's at 27 million right now, if they 10x from here or even 100x from here, that would still just put them at a fraction of the market cap of their big competitor. So there's other players in this trying to compete with that market cap as well and trying to take some market share. I just feel like Umbrella has a chance at that and lots of potential growth from here to go. Though again, it's just a risk. I just take these calculated risks myself, and they, like I tell people, I'm not always right, I'm just often right, and that's worked really good for changing thousands of dollars into millions of dollars just over the past 3 years.
Yeah. So that's a great one. So thank you for asking for that again. Let's see. So why have I got that? So
Ecomi, let's take a look at Ecomi.
Ecomi.
This one we've, I think, covered every time the last 3 times, because this is one of my favorites. And it's been wanting to break above that resistance, and it did.
Yeah, so I'd half expected to see that this, like most of the coins I was expecting to see, had come down, because especially when you've seen the equity markets fall, and and Bitcoin and Ethereum and everything else falling, you think, whoa, hang on a minute, hasn't everything gone? But no, this is actually still performing really well. So we talked about the breakout, I think, last week in the 0.00487 level, which if you look at it, resistance here, broke through the resistance, came back as support. So it's used that level. It's playing around this level almost perfectly. Well, actually perfectly. So it's broken through it now. And so this is the new trend. Now, the trend angle started here, and now it's accelerated here. So it may still settle down a little bit, maybe go sideways a bit. We can allow that. It may even try and break back below this point, although I'd prefer it if it didn't. For many reasons, but whilst it's above and it's moving in this trend, that's great, especially when it's swimming against the tide. So yeah, more upside there, I think. And where should it go, or where could it go? Well, I would measure the move and say that we're approximately looking at a move to 0.008. I should say 0.8 would be brilliant, but 0.008 on this chart. All the zeros can get a bit confusing sometimes, can't they? But So it should come to about this level, because if this is a proper reversal, then you'd expect it to move up or measure up at least the width of this move down as a minimum target. So that's not like a hard and fast, as soon as it hits it, it's got to stop and reverse. It's more like, well, how much could we reasonably expect it to move given the trend is starting? And I would say that's reasonable. It could fall short, it could reverse. Obviously, all probabilities are there, but this is doing well.
Yeah, especially amidst most of the market falling, and I think that's put some pressure that it hasn't run up as high as quickly as it otherwise would have, because people in general are getting scared, and that affects just everybody who's new, hasn't learned how to be patient through these types of runs. Speaking of being patient, I'll share with you one of the reasons I really like this token, because backed by a project that does this app, and I'm going to switch the screen so that the viewers can see this better. And this is the VV app, where you can buy collectibles, and this is a Todd McFarlane collectible. Looks like if I get you too close, the camera can't really zoom in or can't focus and see it. But I talked about these collectibles back in March or April to a lot of my viewers. I know a bunch of my viewers bought them. And they were $80 at the time, and now the very lowest price one is for sale for $999. So if you think about it, and bought them in bulk, because I bought a lot of them, I know a bunch of the viewers did too, that has 12x'd over that time. Now, some of the things in the actual app, these NFT collectibles, have more than 12x. I mean, literally, some have gone absolutely crazy and gone to the range of 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, and a few of them to 20 to 40,000. So the collectibles in their app have done incredibly well, and especially this last couple of weeks. Some of their NFT digital comic books have gone from $1,100 to tens of thousands of dollars just over the past month. And so the stuff in their app is going well. That tends to also push up the value of the token. Not always, but it has to do with whether people believe that the team behind it is going to continue to give stronger use cases to the token. And this team in particularly, Ecomi, has committed very strongly to the token, the OMI token, and giving it additional use cases. So part of the reason it was held down for so long, even though NFTs were running, there was twofold reason to it. Number one, it had gone from literally like 1/1,000,000th of a cent or 1/100,000th of a cent up to 1.4 cents. When you have that kind of run over a 2-month period, you have a lot of people that bought prior to that for very, very cheap, and they have the ability to sell at 1.4 cents, 1.3 cents, half a cent, and still be in massive profitability. And so we had this long retracement and this long build-up period that's like pulling a rubber band back and pulling it back and pulling it back and pulling it back. And eventually it's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. It's going to come up. And it's chosen to come up when everything else is going down, funny enough. And these collectibles have gone absolutely crazy, which is part of the other reason this one's doing well right now is they're finally about ready to be able to bring the collectibles. So this one that I just showed you right now, they're exclusively on the app, but they're making it so that then you can send them over to OpenSea. And in OpenSea, you have like Bored Apes going for $100,000, $150,000. It's a market flush with Ethereum and Ethereum-rich people who may not have put tons in, but have made tons, and they're very ETH-rich now. So now that you can bring these collectibles with some of the top licenses in all of collecting over to OpenSea where people are ETH rich, the likelihood that the value of these collectibles goes up tremendously will go up, as well as the token itself has only been tradable on some minor exchanges. And that is about to change. And when it does, usually the price shoots up even more. So when they've got to make a switch on their blockchain and migrate over to a different blockchain for this to happen. But all of a sudden it will likely get a Binance listing or a KuCoin listing or maybe even a Coinbase listing. So the way that I make money is I buy it before those things are even announced, but they're setting up for that, and I hold it till at least they are announced. And for those that are interested, you can get it on Bitforex, and I'll put a link below that you can log in, get an account there, and then you have to send funds over to buy it. But yeah, I think it's about to have a massive run. This isn't financial advice to any of you. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just telling you as an investor what I think about, how I think about it, and what I'm doing myself. And, I guess things have worked out pretty well for me in the last 3 years, going from thousands to millions in this space. Now, millions in paper money. I'm not spending millions yet, but I will be soon in the coming months as I pull some cash out.
Brilliant. Yeah. So this, what I like about this is it has looked so interesting. It was bubbling up technically, and now it's finally breaking out. What I really want to see, even as a bit of a geeky technical analyst, is how this trend is gonna move. So will it be a really fast trend? Will it consolidate and then explode, or how the actual trend plays out, if indeed it does play out? So obviously one that we're going to keep watching week to week, simply because we got to see how that trend moves. But it's really because obviously that's something I know absolutely nothing about, and I'm learning all of that from you. So I really appreciate that information. So the next one, unless I've jumped one accidentally, which I have, so sorry, let me just go back. The next one that we've been asked about is Lock Game.
Yeah, Legends of Crypto Game. Now this is a playable card game through the internet using crypto personalities and stuff. Now behind the scenes they have some people from Blizzard helping them design the playability of this. So obviously Blizzard made, I forget what it's called, it's this card game on the internet that's done exceptionally well over the last 10 years or so, as well as some other things that Blizzard has done. So they understand like computer type of card gameplay very well, and they've been helping them design the gameplay on this, which is not yet out, but we're all looking forward to it. And I've covered Legends of Crypto. It's been a little while, but it's one that I bought and I'm just holding. In fact, I have it staked in earning some rewards.
Right. So I mean, this is on the face of it, it's not doing particularly well because it's in a correction. So it's had its breakout, its blowout, drawn in a load of people, and now it's correcting down. So quite what's behind this correction is difficult to know if there's nothing that's specifically been announced, because it's not like it's come back quickly and then it's ready to go again. It's just sort of winding lower. So that tells me that the price action is being bought on retracements, but it's also being sold on retracements. So there's a bit of a battle going on here. And at the moment, the bears seem to be winning it. So the sellers seem to be winning it. But it's come back into a range where the short-term players might meet up with the longer-term players. And let me just show you where that main trend line is. So if we take this low and we put it across here, you can see how close we are now to massive support. It's actually gone below as well its breakout point, which is not a great sign, but it will most likely shake some people out. So whoever bought the breakout here, and just wanted a quick win and maybe didn't get out quick enough, they've watched it evaporate and then go to just a bit below where they bought it. So there's a good chance that they've just bailed out here. Now, what I'd like to see is this low hold and then for it to shoot up to suggest that it wants to start this new up wave. That would tell me that this has found a bottom and it would look much better longer term. But until it does that, I would be slightly cautious. But I do like this trend line. So this trend line that comes in here is very, very close. So at 0.127, I would say, to split the difference between where the trend line is and where the low is. I mean, you can also, in other ways, you can be trying to find a level and just slightly miss it and then not buy it. So if you're sold on the long-term story and you want to get in, this is a good time because it's had its correction, it's near support. So why not sort of leg into it or buy a little bit of it, and then if it starts to move up, you can add to that position. But I would prefer to see it stabilize at these levels and then move up before getting truly excited about it. So at the moment, I'm more sold on how you've described it than the chart pattern. But as I say, there is local support here, and it's very close. So if one wanted to nibble it, this would be a time to do it.
Yeah, and what I like to do in a situation like this, if this one I'm looking to add to, and I'm not personally because I'm heavy on this, so I'm just going to sit on it, have it staked, and I'm happy just sitting on it. But if I were looking to get into this, I would buy a little bit at this level and nibble at it, praying it actually drops from here. Why? So that I can add in at a cheaper position. If it ends up taking off, well, great, I have some, I'm like, yay. But praying that it drops down and goes even to some of the lower, the previous lows at like 5 cents. Or should I be so lucky it drops? And even though I'm heavy on this, if it dropped to certain lower numbers, I would totally buy more. If it hit 5 cents or it broke below 5 cents for some reason, great. Because I think this one will have its period again. And it might be when the whole market, what tends to happen in these cycles, just having studied 2013, because I wasn't there for it, but 2017 I was, is that when things go ballistic, and I still think they will, I don't know that they will, but I think things are lining up very well for it, that they go completely ballistic again. We have this parabolic breakout. Well, you make the most when you buy near the bottom, and then that parabolic run happens. So I look for small cap tokens like this. I look at, okay, when are they at pretty dang low that I just can't pass it up, and then I buy them, and then I just hold it till that happens. If I end up being wrong, I'm wrong. And that's okay, and I'm stubborn like that. Sometimes I'm wrong before I'm right. I mean, some of my best examples are those Todd McFarlane Batmans that I talked about months ago. Now, would you agree a 10x return is pretty good overall, Paul, in about a 6-month period?
Yeah, I mean, that's unheard of. If you think where interest rates are at zero, where are you going to get a return like that? Nowhere.
So sometimes I'm wrong before I'm right, and two of my best examples are the Todd McFarlane Batman. They kind of stuck around at that price for 3 months after I talked about it, and then they kind of crept up, and eventually, and then all of a sudden, right now they're running, and so. I'm often right, but sometimes I'm wrong before I'm right. One of the big examples that's has made me some 1,000x gains. If I had held my whole position, it would have went from 4,000 to about 5 million. But that was over 2.5 years, which is a totally acceptable time frame to have 1,000x return. Is Axie Infinity, and I was wrong for a solid 18 months. I bought it because I thought fundamentally they were doing some right things. Not looking at charts or anything, I bought specifically some land NFTs and some character type NFTs, but mostly on the land NFTs and the items that came with it. And literally that's gone 1,000x. But for 18 months it did almost nothing. In fact, for 18 months it was worth less than I bought it. But I knew that the fundamentals were strong, so I was just stubborn enough that, hey, it might go to zero, and that's okay. I'll just write off the 4,000 I spent on it. And then when it started going crazy, well, I started taking some profits on it. And then when it went crazier, I started taking some more profits. And I still have some of those items that I'm selling off slowly from it. And it's been an incredible winner, but it was kind of a loser before it was a winner. And so when I buy these things cheap, sometimes they then get cheaper. And I'm just like, oh, I could have gotten so much more. I'm not mad that I bought it. I'm just mad that I didn't know to wait to buy it even cheaper, because I'm buying it for fundamental reasons. And when you're trying to catch a falling knife on something with stronger fundamentals, sometimes you bleed all over the place because you didn't buy it at the bottom and it goes cheaper. And I take that risk sometimes on things like this. I look at what levels I'm interested in, I buy at those levels, and then sometimes it goes cheaper. And the way I've learned to do is I just nibble at it, like you said. Then I buy more, and then I buy really big. And I did that with Ecomi that we were talking about. I nibbled, and then I nibbled some more, and it kept falling. I nibbled some more. When it went really cheap, I bought a whole bunch. And then as it started to come up and then pull back at certain levels, I bought some more and just have continued to dollar cost average into that one. And then I just sit back, and I don't even think about Ecomi's price day to day. Legends of Crypto, I have a strong position in this I'm happy with. I don't think of the price day to day. I have Legends of Crypto staked. I don't know if there's currently staking available. Those pools might be full, or maybe they aren't, but might as well, since I was going to hold it for a period of time, just get some increased rewards, because when I'm planning to sell these is when the market goes parabolic. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I am playing with money, though my wife would hate for me to lose. We're not going to starve. We're not going to go hungry. We're not going to miss. Right now we're renting an apartment. We sold our nice house in another place that we lived, and we bought it, or we're renting a nice apartment here as we wait for winter for a nice house to buy, because winter you get the best deals as well as the best choices. For some reason, the real estate market's still really hot after 7 or 8 years. It should have cooled down by now, but it's not. So we at least thought we'll wait till winter to buy something. So we are playing with money that we can't afford to lose. We just hate to lose it. But that does give you the ability to be patient on things like this. And, Legend of Crypto, if I didn't have any and now we're looking at it, I'd be buying right around now a little bit and praying that it drops from here. Really praying that it drops to 5 cents or below. And then if it does, I'd be buying more personally.
Well, hearing you makes me want to do more fundamental analysis, because it's so interesting. Because I wouldn't, unless it's hit a support level or it's turning or going up, I prefer to wait until the market's done that. But I know that there are people like you out there who've done exceptional research, and those are the ones that are picking it up when it's cheap. And there's a big difference between that, like something being cheap, and something going potentially to zero. And you said it before, of course, it's absolutely possible that it will, but you've done enough research to know everything about it, and that the probability for you of that happening is low enough for you to want to take the risk. So if we look at the Evergrande chart, you can see that's still in a downward trend. It's still not turning. It might look, inverted commas, cheap, but it hasn't found any support yet. And I could have used that argument along the way down, saying, well, it should be cheap now, but it hasn't found it. But if you were doing the fundamental analysis on it, you'd probably say the same. It's not.
I'd be scared to death to be buying Evergrande right now. They have huge. So China's real estate market reminds me of 2007's real estate market, where you have huge subdivisions that Evergrande has bought into and built, but nobody's living in. Yeah. So at least in the U.S.'s real estate market, which has been going gangbusters, and I've kept an eye on because I help strategically them buy in the States and also in Mexico. The real estate market has done crazy appreciation, but everyone's living in the houses that are being built, unlike 2007, where the government kind of changed some rules, which caused rampant speculation. It was really because the government changed some rules that they basically told banks, hey, lend out to all these people that I know that they're high risk, but if they default, we'll back it. So it led to them making all kinds of loans. And because everything was appreciating, people were like, oh, defaults are so low, because if you get behind, you can just turn around and sell it. You don't need to let it be foreclosed on. A realtor can help you sell it and you get out from under it. So it made defaults look really low. So everyone said, oh, risk is so low, this is going great. So then they just poured all this money into it. What it ended up is in California, Florida, Nevada, and some other markets, you had whole subdivisions that might have 15 people living in the 200 houses that are there. But everything was going up. So some people, an investor would just buy a house and they would put shoes in front to make it look like somebody was living there. But it's just totally vacant, and their hope was to sell it a year later for $100,000 more. And so that was a total overinflated bubble that was doomed to burst. And I get those vibes from China, hearing about the big apartment buildings that almost nobody's living in because some government bureaucrat told them they wanted them to build something there. And because there you have, like, it's not really communism in China anymore, and it hasn't been since the 70s. It's actually a subset of communism, which is more called democratic socialism, or the real term for it is fascism. And fascism is just short of communism in that you have some free markets, but it's essentially the government says, we'll let you own that business as long as you do everything we tell you to do. And fascism works much better than communism. Communism, everybody in China was absolutely starving through the 70s. So when they made this turn, really, things ran more effectively than they were. Not as effective as a truly free market, but way more effective than communism. That's why they've had that kind of growth. But now you have politicians making decisions in China of where they want subdivisions to go. And then people saying, well, I don't really want to live there. But because they've had such free availability of money, this company has been able to just, through getting government approvals or whatever, they'll go build this whole subdivision. And nobody in the market really wants to live there, so nobody is living there. But and so at some point that has to collapse. So I look at what's going on at their price now, and I'm like, yeah, I think it's got a long ways more. And in fact, I wouldn't touch that for the next 4 years.
Absolutely, really interesting. So so you found time to do analysis on that as well, which is amazing. So what we got here? We've got Kylin. Is that how you pronounce it, Kylin? Or
Yeah, Kylin. Before we jump over to Kylin, can we hit Drive? DRIES.
Sorry.
Perfect.
Sorry, I just jumped one. Yeah. Now this is one where there's not a lot of data, to be fair, and it's this could be in the camp of you looking for lows before you buy it, but technically, I cannot say that this has hit the low yet. It might have done. I mean, we've got one green candle here, but the trend is still down, and there's not enough for me to get bullish on it, unfortunately. I'd have to wait. At the very least, I'd be waiting. The trend is down, and it's still very early doors in its life cycle. So
this isn't a bad one fundamentally. So really, they're a competitor to Uber and Lyft, and out of India. And I had the CEO on my channel, very bright gal. So here's one of my challenges with Drive is why do you need the blockchain? Because you don't need the blockchain for this. Centralized is okay. Although what they're doing leads to some innovations that give them a strong chance, because you don't need to run this on the blockchain. People don't care when they're ordering a driver, whether it's on a centralized database or it's on blockchain. Doesn't matter to them. What they do care about is it cheaper? It is. What else is good about it is the drivers make more money. So that's why I'm bullish on this, because they're running it out of India, where a lot of the drivers are really, really disappointed with Uber and somewhat abused, because it's kind of a monopolistic situation that there's only 3 major players, kind of just 2 major players in the India market. And all the drivers, they keep cutting the percentage that they make. So the drivers are like, I can't make any money doing this. So really Uber, and I forget the other major one there. I don't know if it's Lyft or who the 2 players were that she said, but they're just taking too much profit that the drivers are just leaving. So enter a situation where they're making it more profitable for the drivers. They're running on the blockchain, so there's more things that they can do decentralized without having so much overhead. And so that's created some efficiencies for them so that drivers can pay less, or drivers can make more money, the riders can pay less money, creating some efficiencies there. And that's why I'm bullish on this, at least for the bull run, right? So say it bottoms out and the charts are not looking good, that it'll probably bottom out more than this. I'd be looking for more of a rounded bottom or a flat bottom before I'll be adding more into this. I hold a bunch already on this, and I'm just happy to sit and wait till it does really well. But if I'm looking to add into this, I'd be looking to add in and pray that it goes below a penny. I don't know if it will, but if it does, that's attractive enough to me that I'll buy more. And then just wait till the bull run happens. And when the bull run happens, I'm going to be taking my profits out on this. Why? Because I don't know whether they're going to make it. And so if this massive run happens, then what happens is millions and actually billions and even trillions come pouring into crypto, and just about everything runs up massively. And that's when I would be taking profits on it out. And I'm just going to sit with my cash on the sidelines to see who's still kicking and doing well in the bear market, showing signs of life, that their prices have massively gone down, but they're still active development. Maybe they're getting customer traction. And that's when I'm then going to be getting into the players. So Drive is one I have my eye on. I don't know if it's going to make it. I'm not going to hold it during that period that I think is the highest risk, which is about a year and a half from now, when I'd be buying back in, and probably about 2 years from now, seeing if they're still doing well. I'll probably have them back on my channel during the bear market just to see how the business is doing and see if it looks like it's going to make it. And if they're getting tons of traction in India, then they can easily spread to other countries. And India is the perfect testing ground for what they're doing. So I'm excited about some fundamentals on this business. Though looking at the chart, it's like, well, I think it's going to get, especially with the general market trending down, Drive not being hugely well known as far as a cryptocurrency yet, my guess is it experiences more pain and gets even cheaper, which might be attractive enough for me to add in some more position, even though I'm pretty heavy on Drive already.
Yeah, I mean, if it can get back over this 0.22 level, then that would be good for me. I'd like to see that happening, because that was where there was a bit of support. And if it comes back and manages to get through that as resistance, then it's, for me, showing some signs of life. So yeah, I mean, I love the sound of the story. I think also, when a coin is this early, I mean, you'd know more than I do. Some of the people who maybe invested in it early, they take their profits, or they take some of their profits. So when it's not as actively traded, or when the market is still very small, it can get blown around by short-term positions. But then, as you say, if it settles down and the technology is good, then it will attract longer-term money into it. So it's still very, very early doors for this. It's very early stages, and it's difficult to see what is actually pushing this market around. So I'd like it to mature a little bit. And yeah, as you say, if the fundamental story sounds good, even when it's trading lower, then it's just gives you an opportunity to put a small amount in it, which could potentially end up being a very large amount when it turns around. So it's good risk reward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did want to thank Definity overall for lending you to us for these. It is so great having you on here, Paul. I can't tell you how much I love it. I know the audience absolutely loves it, because the views, like, you'd be shocked at how many people watch the full hour to hour and 20-minute video. Because
Are you still here listening with us? This is brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, so thank you to Definity. Now, Definity's website is definity.network. It's DEF. They're DEFINITY.network, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And so that you can check out more on them. They do have a token. I don't ever talk about token price with somebody involved in the organization themselves. It puts them in a way awkward situation. So you have to check that out on your own if you're interested in the token. But they have been so gracious to lend us Paul, whose insights are fantastic, absolutely incredible. One of the best people in crypto as far as just technical analysis background for years and years and years, that extends way beyond since crypto even started. So thank you. And if you want to suggest ones for us to look at next week, put them in the comment section below, but please limit it to 2. I especially like it if you tell me what you like about the projects. That really helps me as a fundamental guy, so that I really don't have time to look at the fundamentals on everything when people just throw ticker symbols at me. But if you will write me a paragraph or 2 of what you like about it, then I'll look at the fundamentals behind it. I'll make you that kind of deal. That if you want me to talk about something, you write a paragraph or 2, then I will take the time to look deeper at the fundamentals from that, because you took the time to tell me what you liked about it. So yeah, put in the comments below the ones you want to look at, and if you want the fundamental analysis too, put a paragraph or two what you like about it. All right, back to the good stuff.
Okay, brilliant. So, yeah, we jumped, didn't we, from Drive to Kylin.
Kylin,
So
yep.
yeah, so this is a similar setup here, whereby um, you've you've had this. Well, you've had a downward trend. You've got the breakout, which is fantastic. A correction, which has come back a little further than I would have liked short term, but it's still operating from this bullish trend. So if we draw a line here, what's happened on the left is a downward trend. What's playing out on the right is now an upward trend, and very often we get a symmetry to it. So this correction here is playing out more slowly, but it's playing out here. So I would like to see this come back up and break out the 0.4 level, because that was really good resistance, 1, 2, 3, and then it's just slightly below it, 4, 5, 6, 7 times it tried to break out. So there was obviously a bit of selling going on. There's obviously something happening there, but it's still operating from this upward trend. So even though it's been sold off here, it's still within this up wave. So I would suggest that some buying support is very close, and it's actually already reacting to that at 0.21. It could sink down a little bit more to 0.16. If it gets below 0.16, then I would be worried. But I think it will get bought up before then, and it should turn around and keep going on this upward trend. So this is at the point of a correction, and I'd be looking for support to come in here. Obviously, it's just the first day of that support, so nothing's guaranteed yet. So the next support level to look out for is 0.16. As I say, if that goes, then I'd get slightly worried that this is turning into something a bit more negative. But for now, it looks pretty okay.
Now, I wish I could say at a really deep level that I knew Kylin Network. I don't. I know that they're involved in the data. Like, I don't know if they're an Oracle provider on the Polkadot ecosystem, but they're involved with the data economy on the Polkadot ecosystem, which to me says probably an Oracle provider. Now, the Dot ecosystem has been out of phase for a while, that nobody's talking about it. No, that's when I get interested, when nobody's talking about things. So I hope there's more pain on Kylin before it gets good, because I haven't made an entry on this. But if it gets even more pain than this, absolutely I will. And I like Polkadot. If you know, Polkadot was created by Dr. Gavin Woods, who was the one that programmed the language. He was one of the original co-founders of Ethereum. And like Vitalik gets a lot of credit for Ethereum, but Vitalik wrote like the paper behind it. Gavin Woods programmed it all. And I think he programmed the language, Solidity and everything in like 2 weeks, right? So he was the genius behind putting it together. And there were some great things that have come out of Ethereum. It really introduced smart contracts, which at the time was a new concept, and many people said was a scam and, a terrible idea. So it's interesting to see what's coming out of Polkadot, and I think it can go a lot stronger. And do some really good things. There's some geniuses behind this, but almost everything in the Polkadot ecosystem, their token prices have languished, which is good. I teach my audience to buy when it's boring, specifically buy when it's boring, when there's strong fundamentals behind it. And so I like the Polkadot ecosystem. I think it's going to have some gains coming up in the future, and maybe it'll be ready for that soon. We will see. But I think the timing's decent. I hope the price on this and others gets better.
Great. So on to the next one, which is Convergence, if that's the correct one.
Yes, and I do not know this one from a fundamental level.
Yeah. Now, I would say that if you'd asked me yesterday about this, I would have been concerned because of the correction that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So it was coming into a very dangerous area, which is its major chart low. And whenever a market approaches its prior or all-time low, you've got to be careful that there's something very negative going on, and it's heading towards possibly zero. But this is actually, to be fair, pulled up from there. So actually, for 2 days it's pulled up, which is really good. Now these lows here are crucial, so they have to hold. If they don't hold, then I would get concerned, because it's had a nice run. It had a good run down, and obviously it's got a lot cheaper, and people have decided that it's time to buy in July. It's gone up all the way into September, but then late August, early September, and then it's come down again. So if this was going to be a much better chart for me, it would have already been sort of up at this level here at, you know, point 0.1. But it's not. It's come back down again. So now sometimes markets do this when they want to form. They go from a small base, which this has made a small double bottom, and it wants to turn into a much bigger base. So in other words, the kind of consolidation phase gets much larger. Now the advantage of that consolidation being larger is that when it does eventually trend, that trend is much bigger. So it could be that this was just like the first phase of it recovering, but it needs to consolidate a little bit more, and then we see it go sideways for a bit more, and then it turns. Now, if it can get back up and break 0.04, then that would make what we call a double bottom, or a really strong base, and then that would extend the move back up to 0.09 on this chart, maybe even to 0.1. So it's got a bit more work to do before it gets there, of course. So we're just kind of extrapolating out the way it may trade, but it's a good sign that it's held these support levels. So I like the fact that it's done that, and it's also done that quite aggressively. So that sticks out on the chart as some solid buying, and we're seeing volume go up as well. So clearly the longer term players are thinking there's something interesting here.
Yeah, what I like about Convergence, just looking at their website, I scrolled down to the investors section, and one of their investors is Alameda Research. So that's led by Sam Bankman-Fried, who created the FTX exchange, and a lot of other big wins helped make Solana a big win, as well as the Serum DEX, as well as partnering with Serum DEX with Star Atlas. And so he's really good at making winners. So that jumped out at me, as well as this on their page, Paul Verad, I have no idea how to say his last name, but partner at Pantera Capital. And Pantera Capital tends to get it right too. And so looking at through these investors, those ones jumped out at me. That I don't know specifically Paul, but partner at Pantera Capital, I do know about them, and they're cautious of what they invest in. There's some things that they must have liked from a fundamental side for Alameda Research and Paul, partner at Pantera Capital, to get involved in this. So
interesting.
That's
really
interesting. You literally, on average, if you find out what Sam Bankman-Fried is investing in through Alameda Research, and then you find pretty good lows and you buy, my guess is you'll win more than you lose. Just a guess. Yeah. Just a guess. And just because historically that's been true doesn't mean in the future it will be. But historically that's been the case.
Well, you're definitely picking it up at low levels around here. And if you wanted to have a level where you'd bail out if you thought, well, actually, you haven't got the confidence. So what I like about what you say is you when you analyze something, you've analyzed the fundamentals. You don't care if it gets cheaper because you have a long-term focus. I think a lot of traders, when they buy something, they're expecting it to go up, and if it doesn't, they will get shaken out. Sometimes that's a good thing in terms of like stop loss management, depending on the time frame for a trade. But when you're talking about this type of investment, which could take a couple of years to come to fruition, the difference between buying it here and buying it sort of a few days later is not going to be as critical. But if you wanted to do a short-term trade, like technically, this is how you do it. You buy it, say at these levels, and then you just put your stop below here. Now, unless you were like trading the way you've explained, and you want to buy it for the long term, of course, if it broke below here, you'd actually be buying it. You wouldn't be selling it. But if you're not sure about the market, if you're like, this could go to zero, you do have to have what I call a parachute level. Mm-hmm. And that would be its absolute low. So, and it's relatively close. So the difference between where you'd be buying it and where you'd be selling it if you were wrong isn't that far away. So it's what we call risk against reward. But that's really more a short-term trader's mindset as opposed to a longer-term trader's mindset.
Because with short-term traders, they have to have their capital liquid to be able to put in things that are going up, and so part of the reason they sell out there is they don't want to get stuck in it for 3 months. Um,
Yes, exactly.
and in
They
my
want to ride
situation, I
those
don't
trends.
mind being stuck in it for 3 months because I allocate a portion of my capital, and I just realized I have some convergence because one of their other investors was Duck DAO, and early this year I was participating in a lot of Duck DAO's things, so I have $350 worth of convergence that I wasn't even aware of, and I probably have more sitting out there that I just need to go claim, but yeah. So, will I be adding into this? Well, it really has me extra curious now that Alameda Research is in, but I'm hoping for, well, yeah, it might. I look for W patterns in their chart. I'm seeing, I think we have a little bit more history on that. On
Okay.
Oh yeah, there we go. I look for W's and I buy at the lows from the second leg of the W, hoping that it's going to stop around there. So this would be my entry point, close to
Okay.
here if I was looking to get in. Um,
Interesting.
it
So
w-
you have your own technical analysis. That's really interesting.
yeah, that's my depth on a scale of 1 to 10 is maybe at a 6, uh,
Hmm.
as far as it, but not good enough that I can make swing trades. Just I've learned enough so that I can make decent entry points for long term holds, and that's
Hmm.
worked really well for me.
Brilliant.
Um,
Brilliant.
yeah, we can move over to what was it?
Polka Swap.
Yes.
Yes. Again, this is one that's so early. There's not a lot of data here, guys. So I'm sorry, um, I can't say too much about this because unfortunately there's just really not much data. But it's had a bad run. It's had a collapse. So you see this bar here, all the volume. The market went down, traded at its low. So that's the big pain level. So I would suggest that if it can hold above that, then it's worth a buy because if somebody panicked, we can tell someone panicked. Like the market
Hmm.
panicked or they bailed or whatever was going on. I don't know. But there was a lot of selling, a lot of dumping. And it's instead of it staying low, it's actually managed to bounce. So that's an okay sign. I mean, it's I would say on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of it being bullish, I'd say it's a 4, which is enough to buy it. I mean, it's not it needs to do a bit more work to completely turn around, but it's been in a dive and it's survived it, which is good. So again, to use the kind of same sort of strategy from before, if you're buying it here just because you want to risk, a small amount, and you were willing to sort of either let it go to zero or wanted to bail out at a level to protect your capital, then if it takes the low out, then yeah, okay, fair enough. It hasn't worked. It's not managed to hold on. But um, as it stands today, it's still in this downward trend, but it's survived a pretty bearish event. That's a good sign.
Now I'm looking at this on CoinGecko, which gives us tons more history on it. Thank goodness, because we have almost nothing here. Now it looks
Yeah.
like this probably launched sometime in May, or at least the history starts there on Polka Swap's price chart on CoinGecko, and it came out when it was tradable, at least on what's represented here, at 70 cents. So then you see this long pullback. Now, that's actually the last time Polkadot was really, really hot. And everyone was talking about Polkadot. So I can see them launching right into that. And people are thinking, a swap right on Polkadot. Fantastic. And that narrative played out really well. Only for Polkadot to kind of go to the side as other news really came in. And so its price is pretty similar to what a lot of other Polkadot projects are. And this huge retracement with this really long rounded bottom and a bit of a W, because right around August when we saw that spike on the other Polkadot projects, this had a little bit of a spike up from 4 cents all the way up to almost 12 cents, and then it since has retraced, forming kind of the second leg of a W, which also ends up being like a double bottom, and but a nice rounded bottom that tells you that you're running out of sellers. You also don't have a lot of buyers, but there's this push between the buyers and the sellers, the few that are happening with such little volume that is keeping the price pretty stable there. And that's when the rubber band gets pulled back and then takes off. So I don't know about the team on this. Like before I was going to put some in because the chart looks good, I would want to know more on the team and make sure that they're still there running and working and they haven't like really taken second jobs and not really doing anything related to the development, because that sometimes happens. I would need to know those kind of things before I'd be putting money in. If I knew that the team was pretty strong, then I'd be considering putting some money in at these levels.
Sure, great. I had a look on my other chart and it didn't have the data, so but we can obviously come back to that.
Sure, sure.
I think we need to like see how it trades over a couple of weeks and then maybe come back to that and see if anything significant has happened. This is again a very similar story in Charlie 3. Charlie 3, is that the correct chart?
Yeah, and if you look, that one isn't going back all that far. There's a lot more
Yep.
data on CoinGecko.
Okay.
Yeah, if you go to CoinGecko and put Charlie 3 in,
Okay.
and in the search on the near the right side there, just start typing Charlie 3, then you'll see it. There we go.
Okay, great.
You're going to have a lot more data here. And
Okay, here we go. So I've never looked at this site before. So right. So what I like to do, so what you're saying here for me is I like to use bar charts, although the normal sort of most people use candle charts, which I don't like quite as much, but that's okay. So yeah, on this, well, it hasn't got the current rebound, so we've seen it moving down. So let's go to max data. So that's the max amount of data we can get. Yeah. So this is made like a big sort of what we would call an M or a double top, although there wasn't much of a prior trend for it to make a double top in. So it's coming back into major support. I think that's the best thing we can say about it. It's made this wave before, so it's gone up, it's come back into support, rounded bottom, which is, now I see why you were saying that. So it's a rounded bottom, it took off, and then it's come back again into this zone. So it will probably repeat this. It will probably just go sideways and then back up again. So there's plenty of support just below, or on this chart, it's $1. So as it could be getting drawn into $1, but those who are looking for $1, that you might get, which is what I think is happening now, you're getting buying ahead of that low. So instead of waiting for it to hit $1, people are trying to pick it up before it gets there. And that's possibly why it's had this big lurch. So they're anticipating, putting a big position on at $1, but instead they're nibbling at it now, which is what's caused it to rally. So that's a good sign. This I think it's much better now. I've looked at the longer term chart, because on the short term chart it just looked like it was going straight down.
yeah, and Charlie 3 is a Cardano ecosystem project. And so when it came out, it launched on Card Starter, which is the premier launchpad on Cardano, and it took off and did absolutely amazing things, which is almost always then followed by a retracement. Number one, because it overpumps, but number two, because the way a lot of tokens, when they're launching, they do their tokenomics. They try to structure things so that they do get a big pump that then leads to people knowing about the project. But the structure that they create is they create vesting for all the pre-sale investors and sometimes even the IDO investors, that, oh, you only get a portion of your tokens now. Sometimes that's for pre-sale investors 5 or 10 or 20% at the token launch, but then they get more released over time. And what I've learned about a lot of VCs is that as soon as they get their tokens unlocked, they turn around and sell them. So it creates a lot of selling pressure, and you see these big retracements. Then at some point, like, it flips around, because you still have that selling pressure that is now somewhat constant, whether it's once a month or once a quarter, or they have daily vesting that they just have to unlock. Then at some point, that creates some selling pressure, pushes that price down. At some point, it comes back into the narrative, and Cardano has come into focus as it was leading into the smart contract updates, and bam, Charlie 3 took off with it. and boomed and went from $1 to almost $4. And now that Cardano's kind of out of focus again, it's retracing again to probably a pretty attractive point. Now, I don't know the Charlie 3 team. I did talk to somebody who did say that they know him as a very smart person I talked to, and they said they didn't feel like the team had their crap together, was what they told me. I usually try to verify that information across 2 people, because it might just be someone's opinion, though this source is pretty smart, so who knows. They are an Oracle provider on Cardano, or a data provider on Cardano, so we'll see. That doesn't mean that even if they don't have the right team, they can't do really well, and maybe that was just a personality clash. I don't know. So I don't know them. Would love to get to know them, but I don't know them yet.
Yeah. What we do know is when you do your research, there's a lot that goes into it. And so what you're saying there is just that's kind of superficial stuff that you may have heard. But I think
people aren't always right on their opinions. I've learned.
Yes,
that.
absolutely. Yeah. Everyone's perspective is different. Even that's why people disagree at football matches.
Yeah. Right.
So the next chart is shadows. This I like in terms of it's had a double bottom, which is, let me just move it up because you can see that a little bit clearer. So they had a small double bottom and then extended out. So a double bottom is a basing pattern where it makes a high, comes back and makes another high, breaks through it. But this was a small pattern. Remember I was saying earlier about I wanted the market to spend a bit more time basing because then that could create the platform for a much bigger rally. Well, this is what this could be doing. So we've had the downward trend, you have the rally, comes down again, the rate of that decline has eased off. So it's now starting to turn around again. So without knowing anything about what's gone on here, you've got a higher platform here compared to here. And if this kind of repeats, then it will be making a much bigger double bottom pattern. If it can get over 0.35, then that's a way to the races. So it's a point where it would look interesting to buy some if you didn't have any, I would say, to initiate a small position ahead of its turning.
Now, I wish I could say I know the team on this. Shadows is a derivatives project on Polkadot's ecosystem. So like everything else on Polkadot's ecosystem, it has suffered this big, huge price decrease as it's been out of sight, out of mind, and people haven't really been thinking about it. So it had this really big increase. And I didn't realize Polkadot would be out of mind so much because I didn't know that these 3 newer players, relatively newer players, Solana, Phantom, and Avalanche, would come in and create so much traction, kind of relegating Polkadot to the sidelines for a long time. But then it's not that Polkadot won't come back into focus. It will, and at some point you'll hear every YouTube channel talking about Polkadot and Polkadot ecosystem project. And I feel like we're closer to that point because what usually happens with most YouTube channels, they cover what's hot. And what's hot? Well, what just pumped 100% or 200% or 5x or 10x or, so that's when they're covering it. So do I want to be buying when they're covering it? No, that's actually usually a take profit zone for me. What I do is try to buy when it's out of sight, out of mind, but stronger fundamentals. Now, I have a bunch of DAOs. I've talked about it before. I wish I could say if I knew that the team was alive and kicking and doing amazing things. I have no idea. So my purchase on this was more speculative. I don't exactly love the lack of fundamentals that I understand about the project. But I felt like they're in a narrative that will do well in the future, which is derivatives on the DOT ecosystem, at least for when the DOT ecosystem comes back into focus. Likely then it will pump, and likely then I'll be taking profits completely out unless I hear and get to know the team and feel like, okay, the team's definitely alive and kicking and has amazing ideas. They were just in a narrative I liked in an ecosystem that I think will come back into focus. It's taken longer than I thought, but it will come around.
Brilliant. That's really interesting to hear.
Kyber Network.
Kyber Network. Yeah. This is an arrange basically. So we've had the run up, and then when a market makes a major top, you get these very volatile swings. So we've had this massive battle up here. So if you were in that, that must have been a real roller coaster ride. And the trend down wasn't particularly smooth either. So the way it went down, it dropped, rallied all the way back again, and then dropped again. So I'm just pointing that out from a point of view of like, if you were investing in it, it was smooth down towards the end of last year. So those were the sort of quiet times, as you were saying, and then it got very, very noisy up here with massive swings, and swings like that aren't really very nice. So I can see why investors bailed out of it. Now, coming more up to date as to where we are now, market has managed to find a low, and it was operating from a very nice upward trend. But that trend, unfortunately, hasn't managed to stick. So although it traded over its prior high, it should really have extended from there. And it's done completely the reverse. So it's reversed really aggressively. And it's now coming into, it's got to find some support to turn around. So I think for now, this is just like a consolidation. I wouldn't necessarily think that I'm about to suddenly miss something by not buying it. I think if I owned it, I would just probably hold on to it, because it's not bearish enough to just say bail. But yeah, I just think range for there. It's very sort of 50-50 proposition.
I don't know on a fundamental side what's happening with Kyber Network. There's two tokens with the same ticker symbol, and one then says Legacy. So Kyber Network Crystal and Kyber Network Crystal Legacy, but it's still got the K and C, and then they have an L at the end. And I don't know what's going on, if the whole thing forked, because K and C goes way back to 2017 and hit almost $6 near the top. It hasn't quite reached that again yet, and so I don't know, did they have a fork or why there are now two tokens, the legacy one and then this other one. I would have to say, for me, this would be a complete hold until I know what the heck is going on there. Yeah. Even though the chart, that chart is starting to look attractive, I would be looking to buy it, not till it hit like that previous $1.15 around that range, and maybe just above that, and then just a little bit, and then I would see if it came down. I would pray that it could come down and break under $1 if I had a strong feeling that if the market does go parabolic, and my thesis is correct, that I had a strong feeling that this would go parabolic with it. In fact, much more parabolic than some of the larger altcoins.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of data going back there. I assumed actually that there wasn't, but you can see from the lows, it has actually, it has made higher lows. It's just that they're relatively close. So it's just had these big runs, and they've just not been able to stick. So at the moment, it's in a consolidation phase. But like you say, it's not far from some pretty good support levels. So if it gets a bit low, I think it will attract some longer term players in.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at the next one. Fala Network, is that right?
Yeah.
Does that look good to you? Yeah. Cool. Okay. Again, this is very range bound. I guess this is just a quick one. There's not much to say here at the moment. We've got rising lows, which is good for a trend, but we've also got these spiky peaks, which are not good signs. That means that the market's gone up and it's been slapped back down very aggressively. So it did try and take off, but somebody was like, okay, I'm getting out, and they've hit it back down. So it's gone back into this range. So it's almost like, yeah, we should have another go. We'd like to see how it trades on its next go, but I wouldn't be, I would like to see it get into a nice smooth trend rather than this sort of like heart monitor type thing where it's just sort of spiking up and coming down again. It's too much in the middle of this range. So you see where I'm drawing this line. It's literally pivoting up and down from this central point, and it needs to be averaging more of an upward trend for me. So if you take it from December last year, of course it is still an upward trend, but if I'm taking it from when things start to get volatile, and what might encourage an investor to get in from a technical point of view. And it all this volatility started around February, and it hasn't really ended yet. So I would like it to settle down a bit with its volatility, and then to start trending up smoothly. Now, if you were a short-term player and you wanted to trade some of these moves, you could be buying and then selling it on the rally, which is and then buying in again. That could work, and I think that's what perhaps has been going on in this market, because it has been very spiky. But that's not good enough for me for a long-term trend as yet. So I'd like it to hold over one, and to trade for like a good month over one, and then ultimately to break this 120 from where it got slapped down. So if it does that, then I'd be very interested in it.
So I saw a lot of this behavior during the bear market, and I did have fun kind of trading these swings. And
Oh
it was a
wow.
lot of fun in the bear market because, right, some news would come out, things would jump up. So I literally would buy when I identified it was pretty cheap. And then, if it doubled, I would sell either my entire position or at least half my position. In a lot of cases, my entire position. And I just did that a couple times because the bear market's boring. So it at least gives you some entertainment. And I would just buy and I would set, and I'm like, oh, yay. I would just kind of stop paying attention sometimes for a half a week at a time or a week at a time on that particular coin, sometimes a month. And all of a sudden I would get a notification that the trade had filled, and I was like, oh, yeah, oh, great. And then sure enough, it would come right back down, and I could buy more cheap again. So
Brilliant. So you weren't actually just sitting and watching every move, which is very good for your psychology, because that can drive you crazy. It really can. It's good to just have your strategy, and then kind of put it on and then walk away, because watching every tick is very hard. It's very hard to do.
Yeah, and I specifically did that on one that I felt had strong fundamentals, so I wasn't concerned that even if it dropped, it wasn't going to go to zero, or less likely than normal go zero. I don't know enough about Fala Network to know if I
Yeah.
think they're going to survive or not. I was looking up their website, and they're trustless, privacy-preserving cloud computing. But I know
Mm.
nothing about the team and how they're executing on this.
Well, I
So,
mean, that sounds like a very interesting area to be,
mhm.
creating some technology in. So certainly from the headline, it sounds great. But like you say, it needs a bit more than that for it to properly work.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. So the penultimate coin that we're going to look at is Net.
yeah,
So again, unless I've used the wrong chart, this not much data on this, and it's pretty much range trading. Um, this has formed a very short term, what we call doji, where the market opens and closes at the same level, and that normally reverses a trend. So I've drawn in a trend line to show that it's actually showing a little bit of short term strength. So between now and next week, it could rally up to six, but overall, there's not enough data for me to make a long term call on it, and B, one move isn't enough to base a whole long term strategy on. So I'd be really keen to hear what you might have to say about it, um, because, as I say, there's not really enough technical stuff here for me
yeah.
to
So
do.
my guess is this one's going to do well in the next 3 months, and the reason is it's a multi-chain DApp hub on Kusama. So I was wondering why this token I've never heard of has such a high market cap, $300 million market cap for a project. I probably have heard of it, but there's thousands and tens of thousands tokens, and I'm just a person. I can't keep track of everything, and I don't even remember everything that I've heard of over the years. So we don't have tons of history on this. Hasn't been out and tradable all that long, but my guess is in the short term the price might get more attractive because it recently released. And though I think Polka Dot and Kusama are going to be in focus soon, I think it's definitely building towards that. If this one breaks down below some of these prices, it could come down farther because for a token that just came out, that's a really high market cap. And so I'd be concerned to be buying it right now. It does say the circulating supply is 56 million and the total supply is 70 million. But I don't know what I get concerned about with something that's been so recently released with such a high market cap is, are there pre-sale investors that are going to be getting tokens unlocked now? Maybe this was a strong enough project. They went to their pre-sale investor and said, "Hey, look, your token's going to be locked up for 2 years, or a year, or a year and a half, and then they're going to vest over the following 24 months." And if so, then there's not going to be new tokens really coming in that are then likely dumped on the market. But I wouldn't be buying at this market cap without knowing really strongly what I think about it, because I do love the area that they're in. They're a multi-chain DApp hub on Kusama. That's really, Kusama's going to come back into focus. When it does, it's going to be big. But they're already at 300 million. So where can they go from here? Maybe 3 billion, 30 billion though. I don't know. So yeah, without knowing something much stronger on the fundamentals, I wouldn't even be buying at these levels until I learn a lot more about it. And probably one of my viewers will know tons about it, and they'll write me a big long thing below it, which I would welcome. I can't know everything, but part of the reason I'm trying to grow the most informed audience is because I like surrounding myself with smart people. And what I do love is there's been some very smart people attracted to our audience, and they engage with us on the Telegram channel, and some people that are even better financial data analysts than me. And so I love that we're creating that kind of community, because I can't know everything. I am good at identifying certain patterns, but I'm just one person too.
Yeah, I'm surprised at how many you keep track of at this point. So yeah, as you say, there's thousands of coins. You've got to prune some of them out. You can't know absolutely everything. But there's so many interesting stories as well. So that's the other thing, So yeah, it's really great to see these coins, because I wouldn't have known to look at them without your viewers suggesting them. So thank you for doing that. Now this is a really interesting one. Now when I talk about what I like to see in an upward trend, this is an example of what I'm looking for. So I'm looking for a sharp move, a consolidation, and then another sharp move. And this has made that. I mean, and if you look at how the trends move, the trends are relatively smooth. So this trend here was relatively smooth when it went up. So this trades nicely. So we got a double top that ended the trend, which turned into a bigger top, which ended the bigger trend, and then it turned into a rounding bottom or head and shoulders there, and then it exploded. So is this trend over? Well, no, it's not. It's not over. I would suggest that this is going to be what we call a triangular constriction. A triangular constriction is a bullish pattern. So it means the market has made a high, it's made a low. So there's two stakes in the ground. We're either going to take this high out or we're going to take the low out. That's got to happen at some point. But because the prior trend is bullish, the bias goes to the upside. So this is a consolidation phase where profit takings come in, but the market is fighting back. And so the story's good enough to keep buying and holding. Otherwise, this would already be down, at these sorts of levels. It would have come off. So I like this. I think this is a good triangular constriction. It may take a couple of weeks still to play out, but it should go for an assault on this 0.19 level as we move into sort of October, November. Now, where things turn around, where this turns into a reversal pattern, is if we break below this 0.12. Then it would have made a double top. Now, you can be in a position where it's like, if it goes up, it's bullish. If it goes down, it's bearish. I really don't like to give that sort of view, because it's like, well, we kind of know that if it goes up, it's strong, and if it goes down, it's weak. But there are times when you are right in the middle of a crossroads, and you do need to wait to see how the market tips its hand. Now, I'm going to say it should tip it to the bullish side. I could be wrong, and I'd be willing to change my view. That's technical analysis is about probability. So if I say the probability is that it will go up, knowing where you're wrong on that probability is more important than being right. So what I mean by that is, if I buy it here for, say, a short-term trade, I'm not going to be holding it all the way down to the low, because I have an escape route. I have a parachute that gets me out, and that would be this level at 0.12. But as it stands at the moment, this is one of the most interesting charts that we've seen, apart from the Ecomi, which is still in a developing trend, because it is moving in an upward trend. This is a nice triangular constriction, which is a good technical pattern, and we are waiting for the next breakout. Now, if it can get through this resistance, where's the next high? Well, the absolute all-time high on the chart. So it's not that far away from it. So I'm encouraged by the fact that it's not that far away from this prior high. And it's actually taken all this time to go down and come back to it. Why would it go all the way down, only come back to near this level and just fail? So I think that this has got the potential to be leaving this level behind. So going through this 0.21 and beyond. So I think there's got to be an interesting story there somewhere. And if it doesn't do it on this occasion, then maybe it will come down for another corrective wave, and then it will turn back up again.
Yeah, I would love to hear the subscriber who suggested this, his thoughts on it, because I've been looking at the website of it, and interesting narrative that it's in. It's the fastest Ethereum virtual machine, eBPF, I don't know what eBPF is, hybrid chain. We provide a scalable solution for dApps with up to 50K transactions per second. Now, it does say it's based on Solana, so I don't understand when they say based on Solana. Is it interoperable with Solana, basically a way that Solana can essentially run the Ethereum virtual machine and be interoperable with Ethereum? I'd like to know more on the fundamentals on this so I can make an informed decision where I think it's going to break down from here, break up. And what's interesting is Solana itself broke down from here as they had seemed like a hacker attack throwing tons of stuff at the network that ended up crashing it for a little while.
Oh, wow.
Still relatively, and so Solana, dipped strongly because of it, but it's still relatively new. It is backed by some very intelligent people. I think it's great when people break things, because then you can realize what was wrong, make it harden so it can't break again. They haven't had years and years and years like Ethereum has. And so you expect that with newer blockchains like that. What I like is the people behind it. So, yeah, I'm curious as the fundamentals on this. I don't know them, but I like the narrative that they're in. So then I start to look at who is the team behind it, what exactly is it. They're in a good narrative, possibly. If they've got a great team and a really developed story, then it might attract my dollars.
Yeah, well, that's great. Look, thank you so much for putting that on the radar and all the other coins, because they look very interesting. So we'll be obviously coming back to those in a future episode. So, so that's all of them as far as I can see.
Yeah, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate Definity for lending you to us. I did want to shout out our sponsors this month, Ether.cards. They're creating the most revolutionary NFT technology for projects to be able to upgrade their NFTs and do certain things, like you make NFTs so that, say, I made some through them, and I'm considering something like this. You can make it when you hit 30,000 subscribers. The NFT actually morphs and changes automatically. I love the technology that they're doing. So if you have an NFT project, want to upgrade it, great. They also have some amazing NFTs you can buy through OpenSea. I have bought some because their artwork's amazing. They are doing this CryptoPunk giveaway that I cover more in depth in one of the previous episodes. So if you're watching this channel and you're ready to upgrade your crypto game, and if you're here, like, I don't know about you, but I came here for life-changing money, for crypto specifically. I loved what I was doing in real estate investment, but what I liked about this is shortened cycle, so I came for life-changing money here. Now, I know some of you are also here for life-changing money, and that's cool too. Or, you're here for that Lambo. And if any of those things, strap in, because the coming months, they're going to be hot. And we're creating some of the most informed audience, or the most informed audience in crypto, so join us. You can see our Telegram, the link down below, and you can join us and interact with some amazing people that are there as well. And if you haven't subscribed, you might consider it, because the principles I share are proven, and they help you resist FOMO and resist the urges to panic sell. So, thank you all for joining. I've got this wrap developed for all of you so that you can, it's just really to reinforce the principles that we talk about.
came into the space chasing all of the games, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, you're bad before you're good. Was taught to buy when it was boring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I'll always make the time in mind. I sit the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't lead with my heart. The principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Why when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, go parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. The time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and a feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to study and to know that nothing comes easy but with knowledge to gain show. Sticking at this wrong cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing and when it's slow will be the target. Naysayers come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. I'm sticking around, the time is better. I'm strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. In 2 years time the bull will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go with the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.